Bueno, yo le doy.
Vamos a empezar la entrevista con investigative journalism, collaborative journalism, Malinas a las hoy es día 3 de junio. Y bueno, vamos a ver con las preguntas.
Sorry, I just need to send
No,
one message.
no, don't worry, because I need to look for the questions. A ver. So perfect. Perfect. Yes. So thank you very much.
You're
The
very
first
welcome.
place.
Yeah.
So we will we may quote some answers that related specifically to the main questions, and in case of doubt, we will contact you. I'm not sure if we will quote person by person or in a general way, because that depends on number of answers and everything. Mm-hmm. And we will present the results first in Future of Journalism conference in Cardiff in September. And we may use the contents for the podcast, but again, we will contact to be sure there is no problem about that. So our first question is, what does the word collaboration mean in journalism today?
Well, I think collaboration today means that erstwhile competitors, so people who used to be competitors, are now seeing themselves as like teammates. It's an interesting thing because in our nature, journalists tend to be, sort of quite lone wolves, and yet many are seeing the benefits of teaming up. And that's particularly true when it comes to complex cross-border stories, the kinds of stories that require lots of resources, lots of time, different languages, different contexts, and so on. So I think it's a new way of doing journalism. It's quite recent, but very exciting, and people are seeing the benefits of it.
What has the Panama Papers meant for journalism? Meaning there was collaborative journalism before, cross-border before, but then the Panama Papers seem to have raised awareness about collaborative journalism. So what do the Panama Papers mean for journalism and society?
I think you're right that the Panama Papers was one example of a very high-profile collaborative cross-border investigation that really put this on the map. It wasn't the only one. There were some. I think the one that first really caught my attention was WikiLeaks, actually, and then Panama Papers and Paradise Papers and all of these different ones have come along. So I remember back in I think it was 2014 or something like that, when I was involved with the European Press Prize, and we gave the Innovation Award that year to a collaborative. I think it was post. Was it? I think it was pre Panama Papers. I can't remember. When was Panama Papers?
I think it was the 17.
So this was before that. So back then we gave this award to a European.
Previews at COVID.
Yeah. So and we saw it as very innovative back then. It was something very new. But after Panama Papers and other investigations like that, all these different ones, it no longer seems new. So I think Panama Papers helped put it on the map. It was important psychologically. It gave people a template and a model, and it made ICIJ a household name in a way as well, I think.
Is collaborative journalism a trend, or we are in front of a structural change in journalism?
It's definitely a trend. Absolutely can say it's a trend. As I say, it's a fairly recent trend, but it's one that's been gaining momentum over the last 10 years, shall we say. Certainly since around 2012, 13, 14, 15, that kind of time. And I think it is leading to structural changes as well, in the sense that I run the IJ4EU program, and this program itself and other programs like it have spawned collaborations and have spawned teams, informal or more formal, which have gone on to then continue working. And so they have methodologies, they have relationships, they have networks, they have shared data platforms, they have the infrastructure, and that is lasting change, I think. So I would see this very much as it's a hot new trend, but it is also becoming embedded in new ways of working, and that's going to stick around, I think. So that's structural, yeah.
Regarding European collaborative journalism, what is the state of the art? What is the level of European collaborative journalism, if possible, if you have the data, compared to collaborative journalism in other regions of the world?
Oh, well, I don't have data, but
Well,
my
impression
impression
more
is
than
that
data.
European collaborative journalism is very high compared to other places. I mean, maybe in North America it's also very high, but I would say that, yeah, Europe is leading the way in this. And that's my impression. I mean, compared to, say, in Africa, compared to maybe Latin America, although Latin America is pretty good too. Asia, less so. South Asia, East Asia, very much less so. Africa, less so. So Europe is really setting the trend, and I know that because, I mean, I can give you data from our program, which shows you the sheer demand for this kind of work. So IJ4EU was set up in 2018. It's been going over the course of 4 editions, and during that time, in total, if you look at the people applying for funds to do collaborative journalism, we've had 899 teams apply for funds. These are cross-border collaborative teams. And if you add up all the money that they're looking for, asking for, it amounts to 26 million euros. Now, we unfortunately didn't have enough money to give all of them. And the quality also is very high.
But you were able to fund the 800?
We were able to fund only 150.
150.
Because we simply didn't have the money. So we had around 3.5 million in total. But that shows you the sheer demand. I mean, 899 teams getting together. I mean, that really says that this is happening on a big scale. And then if you drill down into the proposals, you look at the projects that are being done, very sophisticated, sometimes very ambitious, spanning many countries, many newsrooms. Interesting models of collaboration have emerged. I can tell you through our program, we had an independent evaluation, which happy to send you if it's of interest. Has a lot of interesting statistics and things. It identified different models of collaboration, which tend to be sort of 4 main models, which I'll send you. It goes into some detail about ways that different organizations and combinations of freelancers and so on are working. It's quite interesting.
Yes, we would be happy to have that. We are trying to, the objective of our project is to be able to map European collaborative journalism, but we have to put that we are looking at projects because it's very difficult otherwise to do the field work. So for this project, we are trying to map and see what is going on. So it would be very, very helpful. And then 3 or 1 or 2 positive aspects related to collaborative journalism, and 3 negative, if there are 3.
All right, so let me see. 3 positive aspects.
Positive aspects.
Well, let's see. So collaborative journalism is very positive when dealing with large data and, again, spanning countries. It's the sort of thing that teams can do better than individuals. So that's, it makes sense to get together to do that. So that's positive. I also see it as positive, coming back to my original point, that journalists who have traditionally seen themselves as fiercely competitive for viewers, for audience, competitive for advertisers, competitive for funding, if they're non-profits, say, they are increasingly seeing each other as sort of not competition, but collaboration partners, that kind of thing. That's a very positive trend, I think. And that's good for journalism, and that's good for trust in journalism. I think that another positive would be the public perception of the watchdog role of journalism. When ordinary people see something like Panama Papers or these big collaborative projects, that sort of reminds them of the value of the fundamentals of fact-based investigative journalism, and that's very positive. So they have a big impact, a big splash. Negatives? Well, let's see. I think if you look at all the challenges that collaborative teams face, you always think it's probably going to be something around access to information, or it's going to be security risks, or it's going to be, I don't know, handling large data sets that aren't comparable, something like that. But actually, those things are usually, they're okay with those. What really is challenging for teams are often interpersonal, intercultural things, very often very small and petty things that can actually create a lot of problems. Dynamics within a team, an unequal balance of sharing the workload, a big ego here, too many extroverts or too many introverts. These kinds of dynamics. A lot of my experience with working with these teams has been, it's about the psychology of the thing. So it's not easy. It's not easy. So I suppose the negative is that it's not something that just easily falls into place. It requires a lot of work. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it falls apart entirely. It's often on a very human kind of team level. So I suppose that's a negative. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to bring my computer because I am very tired and aged. What type of media or journalists are best prepared to collaborate with other or across borders?
Well, I would say that the most prepared are the ones that are specially set up to do so. So we've over the last few years, we've seen a rise in the number of investigative, usually non-profits. So think of Investigate Europe as an example. There are many others. There's the Balkan Investigative Reporting Network, OCCRP. These kinds of organizations or networks that exist purely for this. So they have their network, they have their ways of working, they're extremely well equipped to do that. So I would put them at the top of the list. Then you've got some traditional media who maybe have played a pioneering role in launching big investigations that require collaboration. So think of The Guardian, think of Süddeutsche Zeitung, these kinds of papers that have played a prominent role in IJ for EU, ICIJ investigations, that kind of thing. I'm sorry, I'm delirious.
No, don't worry about that, because I think we are pretty much the same. So don't worry.
Yeah. So I think they're there as well. And then sort of down the scale, probably also freelancers. Let's not forget about freelancers. Freelancers are great. There's a great hunger among the freelance community to do this kind of teaming up, whether teaming up with other freelancers or teaming up with newsrooms to do stories. And they're often the ones that are kind of left out a bit in terms of the support for them. They're the most precarious when it comes to the risks associated with it, and also just the financial constraints. So, and let's also recognize that money is a big challenge here. It's expensive to do this often because of the scale. And so that also means a lot of cash-strapped news organizations or freelancers are just not equipped to do it because they don't have the money and they don't have the funding. So that's where I think funding, support for this, things like IJ for EU or Journalism Fund, these kinds of support structures are pretty useful.
This is a bit tricky, but in your impression, because do you think there is gender balance in collaborative journalism? Because in the future we are going to do research on women doing collaborative, so that is why we are interested in this question. Do you think there is gender balance in collaborative journalism?
It's a really good question, and it's something I've looked at a little bit because we wanted to see in our program, in the IJ for EU program, to what extent there was gender balance in what's traditionally seen as a male-dominated world. That, we tend to, the popular stereotype at least is that the investigative journalist is a man. Actually, we see there is almost parity when it comes to team leaders leading collaborations in the projects that we've supported. It's slightly, I think it's like 49% women, 51% men, something like that. So it's almost there. In terms of actual absolute numbers, I think there are probably still more men involved in the investigations. but I was very encouraged to see that team leaders were almost half and half, and that's encouraging. So I think that actually the stereotype is not true, that it's completely male dominated. Maybe it's not. Maybe it seems to be a lot of women. And I also know that a lot of women, more women than men go through journalism schools, I think. So one would hope that those sorts of statistics would translate in the wider world into more gender balance. Of course, when people get to tops of their news organizations, that's where we start to see still problems and glass ceilings. But in the world of collaborative journalism, I think women are
leading,
Yeah.
leaders.
yeah, absolutely.
Things, yeah. Good news. Well, now regarding promoting collaborative journalism, in truth, what the research we are doing is based on, we are now first interviewing institutions that received funding in the first journalism partnership by the European Commission by 2021. So we are our first step is interviewing people from that organizations. That is
Sorry, from the first...
the first journalism partnership call from the European Commission by 2021. So you were part of a consortium by them. So we are now interviewing people in the consortiums
from that call.
Yes,
the
we are
2021
interesting too because of your other line of funding with grants, because you're very, very important for our research. But in for this paper, we are focusing on that because we didn't have a way to identify the leaders. So we will go on, but we have started with that.
So just remind me, who are the organizations that you're looking at there?
Yes, wait a minute. Here. And if you could help us to get in contact, we would like that. So it is Cross Border Local, which was Journalist Fund, European Federation of Journalism, Transitions,
in Prague.
Stockholm. I cannot remember what I wrote. So then Stars for Media, Free University, Euractiv, yes, One IFRA, European Journalist Center.
I can put you in touch with them.
Oh, very good. Appreciate that a lot. Yes, Media Innovation Europe. This is your project, and you were with Thomson Media, Balkan Investigative, and Media Development Foundation.
In Ukraine, that's right.
Yes.
So you're not interested in IJFU?
We in fact, we have done a paper examining some, features. I don't know, the investigative features that you granted. We are our research is for this project and the others.
Okay. Right.
So we are doing both.
Okay. Great.
But for this paper, the interviews were focused. But it happens that you are a good reference for both of them.
Okay.
So we're,
right.
but that's because we there is not much about this regarding who is leading, who is promoting, who is helping to advance. So we decided to look for some data that were objective. These people are getting funding to do that, but after reviewing of the projects. I don't know if we will be able to.
We might have to move.
Yes, I think so. Sorry. And thank you. So, yes, now it's about promoting collaborative journalism. It's just...
Shall we move to another
Yes,
room?
because...
Are you going to set up in here or something?
Yeah, but don't worry about it. I'll just keep going if you like. There's still like 15 minutes left.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
No, do we move or we...
It's up to you. There might be people coming in now, so maybe...
No, we should go.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So what we proposed to the ministry was to map investigative journalism for Europe. We want to know, here's also a session. Maybe here. So we want to map the leaders, the journalists working, women, men, going through all the projects funded and all the institutions, a map.
Okay.
But based on organizations, because we cannot go on the field to ask every journalist doing it. So we decided to focus on who's leading and go map what you are doing to have an overview of what is going on.
Right.
So, now is about British. Yes. Why have you, your organization, you can choose, become involved in promoting collaborative journalism? How the idea came? Okay, about it.
So IPI has been doing this since 2018, as I said, and we're coming at it from the point of view of an organization that was traditionally a press freedom organization. IPI is the world's oldest international press freedom organization. So we see the value of independent journalism to democracy, to society, and so on. That's at the very center of our mission. And so we recognized, a few years ago, that one of the ways to strengthen the independent media sector is to reinforce the watchdog role of journalism at a time when it's in great crisis, for many reasons. It's a financial crisis, crisis of trust, all of the things that are familiar to all of us. So we saw an opportunity to really put collaborative, investigative journalism at the center of those efforts.
The problems.
Yeah.
Was there, yes, it's not in the but was there something that made you think that it was the time to do it? Was there something that said, no, we should go and...
Well, I mean, honestly speaking, partly it was motivated by the fact that the European Commission put out, made money available for
No,
it.
but I mean, that is good because we can then see that it is important that it is funded so that we go in that way.
Yeah.
I don't think we are going to. This is like, oh my God. I think we might go now where the piano is because people will be here
Well, maybe we should go outside.
or outside. Yes, because it is impossible here. It's like, I'm really sorry. But probably people hearing because then you cannot speak. Yes, we can go outside. Yes, I think it's going to be the best. Yes. Because we haven't. I'm sorry. I didn't even remember. I'm sorry. See, do you want us to stop for a minute and eat?
Well, how much longer?
I think it's like 15 minutes.
Okay, let's just finish that.
And you can shorten your answers. You're allowed to do that. In any case, if there is something we think we should elaborate more, I would try to.
Okay, fine.
But it is massive. We have never come here.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
It's really impressive. Okay.
Good. I'm going to the section of funding.
Oh, again, hard. Might see you there. I'm just going to get some coffee.
No, just go and do whatever you need to do. Don't worry.
Not too well.
Es que sigue habiendo como colas. Just wait one minute.
What is it? Group sex.
I wanted to get something for you, but it's
finished?
very
Okay.
difficult.
That's fine.
Yes. We can go outside.
Tomajo este.
Encantado.
No lo pare para que sea un solo.
Sí. I think here is perfect. We can sit or... Oh, Dios mío. dangerous research. Okay, so it is the most strange interview I have ever done, Timothy. So yes, yes, I have your yes. What are the opportunities in promoting, and what are the barriers to promote collaborative journalism? Opportunities to promote things that go easy, things that are easy to do when promoting, and barriers.
Well, when we first started promoting our programs, we found, because it was from the beginning, no one knew about it, so we were starting from zero. So we found it really useful to do all the usual stuff, social media and all of that, but also to go through sort of trusted people in the community, in the investigative journalism community. So we did a lot of outreach to journalism schools, to organizations, to networks, and through them we helped ask them to promote our calls for applications, for example. So I think that's it. And getting the buy-in of it's quite a well-knit community already. So that was one way. But as I say, social media is an important way. But after a while, you kind of we don't have to do so much promotion because it's become known. So I mean, don't really have much.
Okay, and so that would be the like kind of barriers and positive or opportunities. Right?
Yeah. So the opportunity. Sorry, what was that?
Yes, it was. But one barrier is that you had to reach out to find people to work on that, and opportunities.
Well, the opportunities are to tap into those networks that exist already. And also to tap into the supporters of those networks. So to reach out to funders, for example, who are already in contact with the people who we would like to support. That kind of thing.
And what is the achievement you are more proud of as promoter?
I think the thing that makes me most proud is when I see a collaborative team that came into being because of our program go on to keep doing work independently of our program. That makes me really proud. So here in Data Harvest, I've seen lots of projects from people who started off with IJ4EU funding, and they've gone on to do many more exciting things, and they've created a team from scratch, or a virtual newsroom from scratch that has an enduring impact, and that makes me really proud.
Very good. Now we are almost finished. What projects or institutions would you highlight apart from your own in Europe as people doing helping to collaborative journalism to develop?
All right, so obviously it's the other consortium partners in the IJ4EU program. So the European Journalism Centre is definitely one. The European Centre for Press and Media Freedom, definitely one. I would also highlight Journalism Fund, based here in Belgium, as a key player. There are other foundations that are very supportive of it. There's the German foundation, the Topfler Stiftung.
Don't worry.
Yeah,
don't worry. We won't quote you saying this. We will get all you say, but we are not going to say that.
Yeah. Yes. And then there are some organizations like Open Society Foundations, which is very supportive. Other foundations, and then there are the networks like OCCRP, Bern, those kinds of things. Yeah. ICIJ, of course.
Yeah. ICIJ. What kind of activity do you think needs more promotion or help in developing? What is more important for collaborative journalism? Is training, producing outputs collaboratively, scholarships or grants, spaces to share know-how, conferences, hubs, technology, mentoring, networks? What is, if you would have to say, what is more relevant or needs to be?
Well, all of those, of course. But if you had to put them in a hierarchy, I think money is the thing that's needed most. So funding, grants, or ideally core funding, that would be at the top, because that's the real need. And then within that, under that, there's definitely a need for mentorship. I think more than training, mentorship. There are training needs because some of these skills are very specific and very advanced, and there's real need for training. But I think mentorship is probably more important for more people, particularly freelancers. And then opportunities for networking, opportunities for getting together. Things like data harvest are really valuable because it's on the anvil of these type of events that collaborations are forged. So the more people can get together and the more spaces we can create to get people together, the better. Absolutely.
Almost finished. Next one is journalism schools. Is it necessary to incorporate journalism in training plans, and what needs to be learned?
Is it necessary to incorporate collaborative journalism?
Yes, as a part of the syllabus, or do students need to learn now in schools how to do collaborative journalism, and what they need to learn or know about? What is important that they learn about this?
I think that, so the answer to the first question is yes, it is important. I wish journalism schools would do more of this. And what do they need to learn about? I think, going back to my point earlier about sort of team issues, project management issues, actually non-journalistic aspects of collaboration. Those are the ones that are completely ignored. And as I said, are often the most important when it comes to the success or failure of a collaboration. Now, I don't know if journalism schools are the right places to teach that stuff, but I think, it would be really useful if, it's one thing to teach all the, the techniques of journalism, but when it comes to collaborating, it's really a lot of human level stuff that it hinges on. So, yeah, that's the challenge. Yeah.
And the end, last one. Could you just say what you think about these three questions? What prompts? Collaboration with artificial intelligence to write stories.
To write stories.
Yes, to do journalistic work.
I think I'm scared. I'm not scared. I'm worried. I'm worried about it. I think there's potential. I do think there's potential, but I'm worried about outsourcing our ability to write. I think that has consequences we haven't thought about it yet. Apart from the other things that scare me about artificial intelligence, such as the use of it for disinformation and devaluing everything that we do as journalists. So AI, I see the opportunities, I see the promise, it's exciting, but I'm probably more worried than optimistic.
Participatory journalism, collaborating with audiences.
Collaborating, so user-generated content, that kind of thing?
Yes.
I think it's a positive thing. It's a good thing. It has a place. It has a place. Absolutely. It's not the only way of doing it, but it has a place.
And finally, how can small media, because we are doing our research on this, how can small local media do cross-border journalism? Can they do it, or is...
Yes, they absolutely can do it. Yes, it doesn't all have to be Panama Papers. It doesn't all have to be huge multinational things. It can be a very small cross-border collaboration. It can be very powerful, and we've seen examples of that on our program. We can send you examples of quite focused, really impactful investigations by small organizations working in a focused way.
I think that's it. So you can restart.